Assalamu alaikum. We are going to cover topics 1.4 and 1.5. Topic 1.4 is resource allocation in different economic systems, where we are going to study decision making in market, planned, and mixed economies, and resource allocation in these systems. So let's start with the kinds of economic systems that we have. What is an economic system? An economic system is a broad institutional framework within which economic activity takes place and scarce resources are allocating between competing uses. All right. So economic system decides who owns the resources, who will allocate the resources, and how will resources be allocated. There are three main types of systems depending on how much government involvement is there in decision making process and how resources are allocated. Why what are the uses of economic system? The uses of economic systems is to find out answers to three economic systems, which are what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. As I said, that it all involves an opportunity cost, right? Now, what is the first kind of economic system? It's the free market economy, or is also known as perfect competition. In free market economy, there is minimum to no, not minimum, there is no government involvement, and all the resources are owned by the private sector. Who are private sector? Private sectors are individuals of an economy, and it's not the state, it's not the government. You, I, our parents, our friends, everybody who is not part of the government is a private individual and is part of the private sector. Who are the main actors or economic agents in this kind of economic system? They are consumers, producers, owners of factors of production. The government is there, but the government has limited to no role. Okay. What are the features of this kind of economic system? The features are there that resource allocation is guided by self-interest, means if we talk about firms, they allocate resources to those goods and services where they can maximize their profit. Consumers act to maximize their satisfaction or their utility, so they spend their resources on goods and services where they can maximize their utility or satisfaction. Owners of factors of production work to get payments and rewards for all the factors of production, and government attempts to maximize social welfare. However, government has limited to no involvement, or the government has no involvement when wherever there is a free market economy. Now, ownership, as I've already told you, that all the resources or factors of production are owned by private individuals, and the government has a duty to uphold property rights, which is done through a legal system. What do we mean by uphold property right? When we talk about upholding property right, it means that the government, the constitution or the government guarantees the right to acquire, hold, and dispose of property, and yeah, proper that can be said. State, it all, the government has the right to lawfully grant property to anybody, right? Okay. Free enterprise means anybody can buy or sell goods and services. Competition, there's a lot of competition, too many buyers, too many sellers. Decision making is decentralized, where individual economic agents, they choose freely where to allocate resources, and allocation of resources is guided by the forces of demand and supply. Forces of demand and supply determine prices and quantity that need to be produced and provided. Okay. What to produce? In a free market economy, consumers determine resource allocation. It means whatever the consumers demand will be produced. Each consumer has a certain amount of money that they want to spend, and each dollar is like a spending vote. Consumer cast their spending vote when they purchase goods and services. Firms receive these spending votes and devote factors of production to production of goods and services. So firms only produce what the consumer demands, irrespective of how much environmental damage it can cause, because in free market economy, the firms, they do not take into account the social costs. What are the social costs? The damage done to the external party or the third party. Who is third party? Who is not involved in manufacturing, trading, buying and selling the goods and services that are being produced. How to produce? In perfect competition, as there are many sellers and most of the people are selling the same kind of goods or homogeneous goods with same kinds of properties and characteristics with little to no distinction. Therefore, everybody tries to produce at the lowest cost, and therefore sell at the lowest price so that more people buy from them. So producers attempt to minimize their costs if they want to survive in the market. For example, if somebody is selling shampoo for 800 rupees and the other person is selling the same kind of shampoo or the shampoo with similar characteristics for even 8-10 rupees, then most people would buy from the person selling it at 800 rupees, because everybody wants to maximize their utility. Consumers want to maximize their utility by purchasing the best quality stuff at the lowest possible or the most economical price, and producers want to maximize their profit by producing at the lowest possible cost and selling at a price that the market or consumer is ready to pay, right? So all the firms will adopt lowest cost technique of production. For whom to produce? The core motive of anybody selling in the free market economy is profit maximization. So goods and services are sold to people with high incomes and wealth. In short, people who are able to pay a large amount for goods and services, or anybody who can pay for goods and services. The amount of money that the consumer is going to spend on a certain good and service depends upon their wealth and their income. What is the difference between wealth and income? Wealth is the amount of assets that you own, and income is the earning, even if it's rental income. Even if somebody is not doing any business at all, and even if somebody does not have a salary at all, but they have assets which they have rented out, then they are receiving rental income. What are the advantages of a free market economy? Free market economy functions automatically. It means factors of demand and supply, they automatically, the market is regulated automatically, and the economy quickly responds to changes in demand and supply condition through price mechanism. What happens? Let's have a look. Why I'm saying that the market regulates itself automatically? Let's see. Let's say if this is the quantity, this is the price, this is supply, and this is demand, right? This is the initial equilibrium quantity here and initial equilibrium price here. Equilibrium price is the point at which demand is equal to supply. This is the price that the consumer is willing to pay and the supplier is willing to take, and this is the quantity that the consumer is demanding and the supplier is willing to sell. This is the price at equilibrium. This is the quantity at equilibrium. Suppose all of a sudden, because of change in cost of raw material, the price of commodity increases. The price of commodity increases, which results in reduced quantity demanded, right? This is the quantity, this is the price. This is the non-equilibrium price and non-equilibrium quantity, because at this point the price and quantity are not equal. As a result, when price increases, most of the people who are unable to afford this good or service will exit the market, thereby regulating quantity demanded once again. When less people will buy the product, right? Less people will buy the product, there will be surplus in the market because a lot of stuff will be left unsold. Less people to buy the product, there is surplus. When there is surplus, the price automatically comes down and adjusts itself back to the equilibrium price. This is how free market economy functions, and the market is regulated automatically, right? When the markets are highly competitive, there no one has a great market power, right? Competition between firms keeps prices down and acts as an incentive for the firms to become more efficient, because everybody would want to produce at the lowest possible cost, thereby staying efficient. There's a strong incentive to innovate and produce high quality goods and services because competition is extremely high. Firms and companies that are most efficient and most innovative, they become most efficient because they bring innovation not only in their product but in the technology and processes that they use to produce those goods and services, which makes them more efficient as it brings their costs down. And self-interest is the main motive for all the economic agents, which results in minimizing central economic problem of scarcity, as all the resources are used efficiently, and every seller tries to meet maximum wants of the consumer, right? What are the disadvantages? Disadvantages are, suppose if you bring one new product in the market and other firms are unable to duplicate that product, then there is a higher likelihood of monopoly arising, where you are the only seller, and the only seller can then exploit the market, where bargaining power of the seller becomes high and consumer can be exploited, means they will be made to pay higher prices. Second disadvantage is lack of competition might lead to monopoly, and it removes the incentive for the firms to be efficient, as monopolistic firms, they have no incentive to produce at the lowest possible cost and efficiently, because they know even if they don't produce at the lowest possible cost, they will be able to sell at the highest possible price. Power and poverty, property may be unequally distributed. It means unequal distribution of resources and income. The rich keep getting richer and the poor keep getting poorer in a market economy, and everybody does not have an equal chance to enjoy goods and services. Practices of some firms may be socially undesirable. It means the firms may be responsible for high social costs, such as polluting the environment, polluting natural habitat, destroying natural habitat, etc. Merit goods would be underprovided by the private firms or private enterprises, while demerit goods would be overprovided, because the demand for demerit goods is inelastic and higher prices can be charged for them. For merit goods such as health and education, if it's left for the private firm or private sector to provide goods such as health, education, and housing, which does happen in Pakistan but does not happen in other countries, then people who can't afford these basic things will be deprived. This is what happens in a free market economy. And free market economy can lead to macroeconomic instability, as there may be periods of recession with high unemployment and falling output, and other periods of rising prices and increasing output, right? And the market rewards people who respond to the changing demands of the economy in form of more customers, and the market punishes others for not responding timely to the demand by throwing them out of the market as a seller. This was first economic system. Second one is the planned economy, where all the resources, or the command economy, where all the resources are owned by the government, and the motivation is to maximize social welfare. Decision making is centralized and is made by the agents of government with regards to what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. Price determination is also done by the individuals working for the government, and there is no price mechanism, as government plans the distribution of resources through planning mechanism, right? So what to produce, what does the government produce? The government allocates resources um, to goods such as merit goods. That is a possibility, it's a normative statement. So the government plans the allocation of resources between current consumption and investment for the futures. Sometime they might sacrifice present consumption and divert resources into investment. They could, because their aim is to achieve economic growth and to maximize welfare of the people. How many resources or how much resources are dedicated to investment and how much to production depends on the government's broad macroeconomic strategy, means the importance it attaches to growth as opposed to current consumption or current situation, right? So what government uses, how to produce, the government tries to allocate all the resources required by each industry and firm in a strategic and planned manner. Does that mean that they are better allocators of resources as compared to free market economy? The answer is no. For whom to produce? The government plans distribution of output between consumers, and it depends on government's aims. The goods and services may be allocated according to their own judgment, and the government may make policies where welfare of people is maximized, such as minimum wage, price ceiling policy, etc. Advantages: government could take an overall view of economy and direct resources in accordance with specific national goals. National income could be distributed more equally or in accordance with the needs. The rich don't keep getting richer and the poor don't keep getting poor. Unemployment can be avoided because when everything is in the hands of government, the government can start projects where majority of their population is employed. The social repercussions of production and consumption can be taken into account and avoided by the government. It means that the government aims to minimize social costs such as pollution. Social cost such as pollution. What are the disadvantages of planned economy? The government is normally inefficient in running businesses because complex plans complex projects cannot be run by government. Complicated plans are likely to be very costly to administer and involve cumbersome bureaucracy. Bureaucracy is always inefficient and they are guided by their personal motives. There is no system of pricing. It means it can lead to unnecessary shortages, which can lead to hiked prices, or it can lead to surpluses, which could lead to a sudden drop and a great drop in the prices. It's difficult to devise appropriate incentives for workers, and complete state control could lead to inefficiencies, and government might enforce its plans even if they were unpopular, which would lead to hostile behavior from people. What is a mixed economy? Mixed economy is a system where resources are allocated, a mixed economic system where Some resources are owned by the private sector and some resources are owned by the government. Mixed economic system enjoys benefits of both kinds of economic systems, the free market economy and the planned economy. They can maximize profit also because some resources are concentrated within the private sector, and they can maximize people welfare also because some resources are in the hands of the government. Which kind of economic system out of the three is a good economic system? It is the mixed economic system, because you can't leave everything to the private sector or you can't leave everything to the government. Also, there are certain things which are better done by the private sector and there are certain things which are better done by the government. For example, provision of transportation, education, healthcare, housing is best done by the government, whereas provision of goods and services, manufactured goods, is best done by the private sector. Now, okay, then we have next topic 1.5, which is the PPC. Right? What is PPC? Production possibility curve. It is also called the PPF, which means production possibility front. Production possibility curve is a model, economic model, that shows maximum output of two goods that can be produced by the economy, holding all other resources and technology constant. It assumes that the economy only produces two kinds of goods, good A and good B. One of them is plotted on the x-axis, other is plotted on the y-axis. The curve is a concave shaped curve. Okay, it shows the production potential of the economy, how much output an economy can produce. There are certain points on the production possibility curve, which in this case are A, B, C. There's one point which is inside the production possibility curve and one point which is outside the production possibility curve. The point inside is inefficient, means a lot of resources or some of the resources are sitting idle. They can be put to use to increase output. And point F is unattainable or औकात से बाहर. Why unattainable? Because it's outside the curve. You don't have that much amount of resources to achieve the output at point F. This output can be achieved if the curve shifts outward, but we are going to discuss the outward shift or inward shift in the curve later on. Now, which are the most efficient points on the curve? Those points are A, B, and C. Any point lying on the production possibility curve is the efficient point. But the question here is, at all these points A, B, and C, the amount of good X and good Y are different. Then how come all 3 points are efficient? All 3 points are efficient because it shows that all the resources are allocated efficiently and fully utilized. None of the resources are sitting idle. Secondly, the combination of goods and services that the economy would select to produce or the firm would select to produce depends upon the requirement of the economy. For example, at point C, if the economy, point C signifies that the economy requires more of good X whereas it requires less of good Y. But what happens if we are switching from point B to point C? There is an opportunity cost. What is the opportunity cost? To increase 5 units of good X, we have to forego 10 units of good Y. So the opportunity cost of producing 5 more units of good X is 10 units of good Y. What if we are moving from point A to point B, which means to produce 10 more units of good X, we have to forego 10 units of good Y. This is the explanation of all the points lying on inside and outside the production possibility curve. Now, PPC can depict micro and macroeconomic concepts. What are the microeconomic concepts? Scarcity, right? Economy cannot produce at any point outside the PPC, which is point F, because of scarcity of resources. Choice or opportunity costs. The economy has a choice between producing A, B, and C, but while moving from one point to another, there is an opportunity cost involved. Then, macroeconomic concepts are unemployment or inefficiency. Point H in this case is a point which specifies some resources are unemployed and resource allocation is done inefficiently. How do we know that resources are unemployed? Because the actual potential is to produce beyond H, which is on the curve. And it's just like we say that you have the potential to score full marks, but you are scoring only 80. It means you are not employing or applying your full potential. It's just like that. Why inefficiently? Efficiency is where you are able to utilize the resources in to their max in the best possible manner. Now, economic growth. Shift in the PPC signifies economic growth. Which shift? Right shift. All the growths in economics are right shifts. Right is good, left is bad. The PPC can shift to right and it signifies economic growth. But how does that happen and what does that mean? It means that now point F here can be attained and this point F is lying on the new PPC. Right shift not only signifies economic growth, but it also signifies that production potential of the economy has increased or improved. Why it has improved and what does that mean? All factors or some factors of production have increased. It could be technology, it could be skill of laborers, it could be number of labor, it could be the type of capital, it can be number of capital, anything. There is also a pivotal shift. Pivotal shift means that the PPC does not move from one point. It's constant at one point, but it experiences an outward shift at the other point. What does that mean? It means that resources to manufacture Y have not increased or improved either in quantity or quality, but the resources to produce X have increased or improved either in quantity or quality. Therefore, the economy will be able to produce more of good X. Similarly, there can be a pivotal shift from like this also. If we have a pivotal shift like this, it means that the economy, the factors of production for production of good X have not improved or changed, but that of goods Y have changed. How do I know that they have changed? Of course, there's a shift on the Y axis, but they have increased or they have decreased. They have gone up, so clearly they have increased in number and more of goods Y can be produced. Shape of the curve. Shape of the curve is concave to the origin because of the opportunity cost, right? What does that mean? Opportunity cost of producing means if you want to increase one unit or if you want to increase the production of one good, then you have to forego some of the units of the other good, right? Now, that is it. Okay, linear PPC means constant opportunity cost. It means that the number of units you have to forego every time will be the same, and the number of units of the other goods that you increase to forego others will also be the same. As we can see, the difference here is 5 and the opportunity cost always is 10 if we are increasing number of goods X. If we are increasing number of goods y, then opportunity cost at every increase is 5. This is extremely unrealistic, and this is not a practical thing. This is not a practical phenomena. That is why the PPC is never linear. Linear means a line, a straight line. It's always a curve which is concave to the origin. What is concave? This. The opportunity cost keeps increasing. What is convex? This kind of curve is convex, which means that the opportunity cost keeps decreasing, which is not the case. Okay, capital goods versus consumer goods, right? So PPC is often used to illustrate the extent to which an economy is producing for present or for the futures. Economies focus on that are focused on capital goods are investing for the long term, because capital goods can increase output in the long run. They don't only increase output right now, there and then, but they also increase output in the long run. They do sacrifice some of the consumption in the present, means they invest less in consumer goods for the time being to invest more in capital goods, so that they can increase production and consumption of consumer goods in the future. Next is capital consumption and depreciation. Investment leads to creation of capital goods during the production process. Capital goods are utilized, which leads to depreciation, means wear and tear, where the value of capital good reduces and the capital stock depreciates. Capital consumption or depreciation is when wear and tear of capital goods happen as a result of use, right? For example, let's look at the figure. An economy at point Z is investing more than its depreciating level OA. What is depreciating? This is depreciation, right? And will have an increase in capital stock, right? They will have an increase in capital stock. If the economy invests more than its depreciation level, then its capital stock will increase and the PPC will shift outwards. If depreciated amount of capital is not replaced, the capital stock will decrease and the PPC will shift inwards. An inward shift happens when your capital has depreciated, when your technology becomes obsolete, when workers have migrated. But when we talk only about capital stock, if you don't replace the capital stock equal to the amount which has been depreciated, then your capital stock becomes less, because wear and tear happens. Productivity of your capital stock decreases, and if you don't replace it by new technology, if you don't invest more in it and maintain it, then obviously your capacity to produce will less, which will lead to an inward shift in the PPC. Inward shift happens when your resources and production potential has decreased over time. Okay, what can the PPC illustrate? These are the factors that we have already discussed. Let's repeat them. Number 1 is scarcity, then choice, then efficiency, inefficiency, opportunity cost, constant opportunity cost, which is an unrealistic and impractical scenario as it does not happen in the practical world, increasing opportunity cost, due to which the shape of the PPC is concave in nature, and growth. Growth is outward shift, and growth in the reverse direction means PPC shifting inwards, where production potential of the economy reduces.